That's awesome.
So it's amazing. I have so much energy now. It's unbelievable. It's a really a life changer. Of course, it's not perfect, but to me, it has been a fantastic jump into something way better that I had before. Yeah, I mean, of course, it brings another challenges, no, but again, I mean, I feel super lucky of having this system at the moment.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, indeed.
It makes your life. It just lessens the load on you. It removes a lot of the weight on you. You know, on your shoulders. You know, when you've got to calculate carbs and stuff. I mean, I know a lot of the closed looping systems, you still input mainly you still input carbs up front,
Yeah,
depending on the system, and I still input carbs. But there's other things that are being developed as we speak. Really, you know, so over the
yes.
next sort of 3 or 4 years, it could be that we don't announce carbs and stuff. It's just it's
Yeah,
moving at
that's
pace, moving at a pace. Yeah,
oof, absolutely mind blowing, and the developing of new insulins that could act even more quick. And I mean, yeah, we're in living a good time for for having diabetes in that sense. Yeah, for
yeah,
sure.
I do
Um,
agree with you. Yeah,
it's yeah, fantastic. I mean, I'm trying to connect to what you were talking before, and I think you were talking about DDoC and peer support and the community, and Tom mentioned how eye-opening is meeting people from other places, you know, in the world that they do have diabetes. And I mean, myself, I'm from South America. I was born in Uruguay, but I have been based in the UK now for 10 years, and it's I mean, it's really like diabetes is something global, and it's something that impacts the entire world. And I mean, we do have the same challenges, and at the same time we do not, no, because for example, when we're talking about developing a very low cost insulin pump, we're talking about a completely different population, no. um, so I think in that sense, spaces like this for just chatting or talking about what is life with diabetes and the things that we're thinking is super valuable and very powerful, as you said, Richard, as well. No, it's very empowering to meet
yeah,
other people with diabetes as well. Mhm.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, you know, I've always said to Tom when he started diabetes chap, I said, like, if you've got a problem, you can talk about it to someone, and you've halved the problem. So, like a problem. You know, if you've got a problem, you speak to someone. You're lessening the worry, aren't you? So you can get ideas from others, and then speak to clinicians, and then going forward, it's all
Oh yeah.
positive. It's all positive. Positive movement, isn't it? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and sometimes I don't know how you feel, guys, but I mean, diabetes could be a very lonely condition, let's say, and just the idea of speaking out, so the idea of articulating what we're living through is a very good exercise. It feels like a therapy sometimes, you know, but we have to put in words how this feels, or the challenges, or it could be something very, practical, as, hey, I just this sensor is not working, how I do, or where I can
Yeah,
get this or
yeah,
that. So everything helps. So
absolutely. Yeah, for
yeah.
sure.
Mhm.
And that's what Tom set this up with. I think that's Tom felt quite lonely and kind of alone, and it's like a big black cloud, if you like, diabetes. It can
Mhm.
manifest itself in lots of different ways.
Oh yeah.
Um, and the mental well-being, the mental load is huge. I've had diabetes since about 84, May 1984. So I've had it for just over 40 years.
Mhm.
So I've seen so many changes. But now you walk down the street and you see people with a sensor on their arm, and you can talk, you can speak to them, can't you? You can
Yeah,
say, "Wow,
yes.
a diabetic in the wild," that
Yeah,
sort of thing. So it's
yeah.
a conversation starter.
I love that stuff, though. I mean, that has backfired to me recently, because there's more people using like freestyle libre for fitness or these sort of things.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
suddenly, one could bump into somebody that has no diabetes at all, and she has, or even other conditions. I know that doctors, they're giving prescriptions sometimes for, other rare things that I'm not aware of. So, it's very interesting how the lucky ones that we do have the sensors in this part of the world is suddenly something that was like a hidden condition. It gives it a shape, or a way of a visible element to it, that's very good to start sometimes just a chat or a dialogue, or opening questions. So that's
absolutely.
also that's awareness. Like a child asking, what do you have on top of your arm, or so that's a very that's good what you're saying. It's a very positive take on it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. But yeah, I mean, looking forward, with the improvements in insulin, like you say, the smart insulins, the faster acting insulins, pump therapy, it's going to take a while to go worldwide, but we're very blessed in the UK, well, in England or the UK, pretty much, to have the option of being put onto a closed loop commercial system, because it lifts your spirits and makes you feel so much better, and going forward, that's going to be it's going to get better and better. So all good.
Yeah, very good. Indeed.
So Santiago, thank you for joining us tonight on Diabetes Chat. We've got a couple of questions, a few sections.
Oh no!
I'm loving the free. I'm loving the free flow. I might just leave you guys to it. Just keep talking.
Sorry, I just jumped into it as
no, it's all good, my friend. Just keep going. We don't need questions.
All right.
We're gonna have some sort of quick fire questions, and these are just quick sort of. A couple of minutes, just quickly getting to know you, and then I think it'd be really interesting. You touched upon, you and Rich already, about what you're currently using now, but I think it'd be good to kind of rewind time a little bit and talk about when you were diagnosed. And we've got a couple of questions on that, and then the main chat tonight is obviously we're going to talk about three main things really: diabetes art, so your advocacy work. And then we're going to talk about living with type 1 diabetes as a parent, like what it's like to be a person with type 1, but then you've got little ones that you're looking after, and that sort of aspect, which we've not really done on Diabetes Chat. We've had people come on and kind of their child's living with type 1, and we're talking from that parent perspective, but flipping it on this side would be really interesting. And then lastly, if we do get time, maybe a couple of sort of questions on screening and your thoughts. So we'll go with quick fire questions, and then we'll come to you, Rich.
Sure.
So quick fire questions, sort of 1 minute, 2 minute really is, what is your name, and what is your connection to diabetes?
My name is Santiago. My connection with diabetes, well, of course, I do have diabetes, type 1 diabetes, and I'm a designer, and I work in the diabetes industry as a designer. I also work with different diabetes related companies, always from the side of communication, visual stuff. Sometimes from the side of interfaces as well.
Brilliant. Sounds great.
And the advocacy, of course, as well. That to me, everything is blurred, but yeah, it's all together in my mind. Yeah,
absolutely. What is your go-to hypo treatment, Santiago?
I use glucotabs.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm one of those guys. I never try like a gummy bear. Could you believe? Never.
Oh, that is it. So next time we meet at an event, I'm going to bring some gummy bears. That's what peer support's about, right? sharing each other's hypo treatments.
Hypo traits.
I remember, and I'm sure he won't mind me saying this. When we were at the DDoC symposium last year at ISPAD, he was having a hypo, and what purified what peer support to me, one episode, was you could see he was having a hypo and he was starting to sweat, and I know he wouldn't mind me saying this. And the next minute, 3 or 4 like people in the like around him who obviously live with type 1 are like, right, here's this. You got tablets, you got gummy bears, you got Coke. Like people were like literally handing him
oranges.
Yeah. And it was just a moment in. I was really proud. Do you know what I mean? Because it's people who just get it.
No need to explain. No need to. Yeah, it's just. I'm going to be very short on this one, but I have a very funny story with Tino in Ispadbad. This was, well, I don't even remember which year, but before the one that was in Abu Dhabi, where he was going super low. You know when you're eating in peer support, where everybody has diabetes, and you can see that he was speaking. He was not making sense, no. And I think I handed him glucose tabs, and that was the first time that he tried glucose tabs, and he was like so high so quick, no. And it was so funny one can really tell when the glucose is entering your system. Now suddenly you have this like, woof, you're going up. No?
It is interesting, because obviously different sort of treatments may take longer,
different effects,
and different times, and sort of like glucose tabs or pure orange juice or something, or things like that, like have a quicker response to get you up. It's really interesting. Whereas if you have chocolate, for instance, it might be nice in the moment, but it might take you a while to get up, and then you're probably going to
a risky one. That's a risky one. That's a risky one.
Talking of hypos, what would you say is worse, feeling hypo or feeling hyper? What would you say?
Oh, to me hypo. I would say of course, I dislike both, but I think the hypo to me has more. The mental aspect of it, like the thoughts in my mind, they're not very positive. I find it more challenging in that sense.
I think, like you say, both of them obviously not nice, but everyone's individually. I think for me, I would probably say hyper, because I think it has a longer effect to kind of come down, I find, whereas a hypo for me, I feel I can maybe treat it and get it quicker and get back to sort of normal. Does that make sense? Whereas a hypo, especially if it's a stubborn hyper, it can be quite frustrating. But again, everyone's individual, and to be honest, I don't think anyone would choose, if they had the choice, which one would you rather have. One thing you like about diabetes, and one thing you don't like about diabetes?
I'm completely unprepared for this one. The things that I don't like, I will say mainly the lack of spontaneity. So not being spontaneous at all, and having to plan everything. That's something that sometimes it's just I dream with the things of like, I just want to go for a walk and don't think about if I have something in my pockets, or without checking the my blood glucose levels, or these sort of things. Something, this is gonna sound very cheesy, but I would say something that I do like is the community. Now that I have discovered the community in the last 6-7 years, I would say. I have met so many interesting people, and from different paths of life, and probably people that I will never meet or have met if it was not because of diabetes.
Absolutely.
So I really value that.
No, that's good. I think we could all relate to that answer, basically. Community, peer support, I mean, that's the positive, and I liked your answer about being spontaneous, and it's hard, isn't it? Like, I want to go do this, but then you have to plan everything, you have to have things with you, you know what I mean? It's a condition, it's 24/7, and it's you can't really ignore it. It's always there, that shadow, isn't it? Last question for this section is, what does mental health mean to you, and what do you do to improve your mental health? And that can be like away from diabetes, I guess. Like, what do you like doing?
Well, since I have the hybrid closed loop, sports, which has been quite. I was the sort of person that I couldn't go for I could go for a 20 minutes walk to the park, but I will go low. So, always carrying like apples or cereal bars. So, this, I never managed to master that kind of, exercise and diabetes in my 27 years of diabetes. But I will say in the last 2 years, I have been able doing quite a lot of sports, which feels great. And actually, I have a funny story. So I went one day to play tennis, and my wife went to pick me up, to the court. And I mean, we have been together for a while, but she was surprised that I was really exhausted, but I was exhausted because of the sport, not like exhausted because of the sugar levels. That usually is like, I turned down because
it's normally the other way around.
Yeah, so it was like, oh, this feeling is so new. It's not like, when you feel again like, oh, this is what is
to be
being hungry, or yeah. So, and it's not because of the blood, the glucose levels. It's just because of the, in that case was the muscles or the energy. Or I can't believe it. I was laughing that afternoon after that. It was just, this is unbelievable. It was like discovering my child again. Inside myself.
So before obviously Rich might touch upon these things later as well, but before then, hypercholesterolemia, did you find sports, exercise quite a challenge then?
Yeah, they were a nightmare. I mean, I it's not that because of that I stopped doing. I'm not a super sporty person, but walking, trying to like a jog of 30 minutes. Always, it was more this idea. Hey, I must do this because I know it's good for me. But usually after the exercise or during the exercise, things went wrong. So. I think that in my case, I know that for all of us is quite a tricky subject, exercise. And we have different levels of intensity, and all our bodies, well, they react differently. And if you have adrenaline, is one thing. If you're doing aerobic sports, is one. And so we all know all those differences. But I would say that now is something that really helps me in terms of my mind. And then another thing that I discovered a few years when we were living in London is something that is called Alexander technique. But maybe you have heard about it. It's quite well known in the UK because the founder Alexander, who was an Australian, moved to the UK. I don't know in which year this was, many years ago, and it's something that some people do. Actors, it's like a technique mainly to, let's say, to understand from where you're pulling your muscles or your posture, or being more conscious about your habits in your body. And as many of these things, there's many exercises or things that they're exactly the same in yoga or in Tai Chi or in any kind of activity where you pay attention to your body. And I think that helps me a lot. I mean, I do some exercise every day, even when I'm working. It's just more like how I sit, or I just to illustrate a little bit. But I don't know, a lesson I remember I went of Alexander technique was how to use a chair, or how you should pick up a mobile phone when you speak. These sort of things. So it's very practical there.
It's really interesting.
And that helped me a lot. I think. I think we all people with diabetes, we are super connected with our bodies, even if we don't want to. And we're quite alert about how we feel, and we're checking ourselves all the time. And so I might be wrong, but almost every person I know with diabetes, I would say that all of us were quite good in that aspect. No, we're kind of sensitive, if that makes sense, in checking our bodies and some of the sensations, I would say. So I would say those two things.
That's good.
Sports and Alexander technique.
Definitely, and that helps you and your mental health and quality in life, and that's what it's all about. So thank you. All right, we'll lead on now with Rich, and we'll, for the next sort of 15 minutes, talk about your journey with diabetes, the 27 years when you were diagnosed. So over to you, Rich, my friend.
Yeah, really cool. That was listening to your stuff, but that moving is really good for diabetics. Like you say, Santiago, you know, if you can move and just get, you don't have to do a lot. Just have a little walk. You know, whether you walk to the shop or walk, you don't need to do a lot of exercise, but mobility is really important to manage diabetes. Whether you've got type 1, type 2, well, if you've got any form of diabetes, mobility and movement is really important, and so is like keeping fluid intake up and stuff like that. But thanks for sharing that. Yeah, going back to your diagnosis, Santiago, what you know, before you were diagnosed with type 1, did you know anything about type 1 diabetes?
To be honest, I mean, I was 14 years old, so I don't remember too much of that time. But I was saying in my mind, maybe I knew something about diabetes, but this idea of, you know, like the old granny in the neighborhood that has diabetes, you know, so that's that conception, let's say. But that was it. Yeah, I didn't know anything about it, so yeah, it was completely new for me and for my family as well. Was new in all senses. Yeah.
So were you in the UK when you got diagnosed, or were you back in Uruguay?
No, I can tell you a story if you want to. So
yeah, I'd love to hear it. Yeah.
I was 14 years old. I was in Uruguay, where I am from. I was living with my family, and I remember actually when I was diagnosed, I received like a letter from what will be kind of a general practice here. But the result, or it was the result actually of my blood glucose levels, was because a month before that, I went on holidays with my family to Argentina, which, well, Argentina is next to Uruguay, and was the first time I saw snow. So we went in a road trip to the south of Argentina, and during that trip, my parents, they noticed that I was, you know, jumping out of the car, literally jumping into the snow to eat snow because I was so thirsty. So they can take a sample of your blood. And at that time, and in Uruguay, it took a month the result to come back. Well, we live in a rural area, so it's not like a big city, anyways. And the day they got the result, I didn't get a letter actually. They called my family immediately just to say, "Hey, Santiago has to come to the hospital immediately." They couldn't find me because exactly at the same time I used to ride like a scooter, you say, like a little motorcycle, and I had an accident. So the people from the hospital, they were looking for me to tell me about, you know, that I should immediately go to the hospital. But I was already in my way to the hospital because I just had an accident. So it's kind of funny now seeing it from the distance. So anyway, so that's my diagnosis. I ended in the hospital because of an accident in a scooter. And then I just stayed in the hospital to understand what is diabetes, and this session where they explain you, of course, you know, all the things you have to do, the management, and then they introduced to. I would say that it's probably a bit different than here, or at that time was different. But anyways, you will get the introduction, you know, to a blood glucose monitor. This is insulin, how to inject. And they will change your diet immediately. And I think I was there for a few weeks, and then I went home, and that's all I can say.
You started feeling better within a few days. You know, maybe a week. You felt. I'd imagine you had basal bolus, long-acting and short-acting insulin, presumably, when you was first diagnosed. Yeah.
To be honest, I remember using an insulin that I don't know if now that even exists. It was like a mixed start insulin.
Oh yeah.
And I mean, and of course, I had to eat at strict moments of the day because, you know, was the time of the peak of the insulin. I use syringes, so I mean the disposable ones. So they did that for training, which I think is very useful because I know how to use it just in case. I don't know now. For example, I have a vial, and I don't know. I think it's good to know how it works in case you don't have a insulin pen or a vial or whatever. And yeah, I mean that was, to be honest, I don't remember it as a nightmare. So I don't know what was going on with me at that time, but I just went with it, and my family were very supportive. So no complaints. I'm just saying this because I'm very familiar with other diagnoses that they were quite more like a crush, but yeah. I think I really got into the tech part and reading about it and trying to understand what was going on and the biology side of things, and
then recovering off this, off your cycle accident, I bet that was a double whammy, really, being diagnosed with diabetes, then having injuries that they're sorting out in hospital. But you came out of hospital feeling much better, I guess.
Yes, indeed, and now I will say that the accident probably was because of the blue glucose levels. So probably it was hypo, and I didn't see. I think it was a car or a van. I don't remember. So.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, I was 14 as well, funnily enough.
Oh, really?
When I was diagnosed. Yeah, I was 14, and when you're that age, it's like I was I wanted a coma. I was really poorly though, and I was in 6 days in hospital for 6 days. But back where you were, you'd been back in South America. That must have been tough for you and your family. It must have had it must have gelled you as a unit, your family, your parents, to help you deal with it. And that's reassuring that you got a wonderful family to help you through that difficult part of your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, very lucky in that sense. Okay. Yeah. Wow. Now it feels, now it brings memories. That was so long ago.
So, you've been living with it for 27 years. How has it progressed over the 27 years in terms of education and you've been on a closed loop system for what? A couple of years, did you say?
A couple of years. Yeah, two and a little bit more, 2 and a few months. Well, I think the if I can tell which were like the life changers, I think the first one was the Libre freestyle sensor for sure. Before that, so I lived a few years in Spain, and I think when I lived there also I was exposed to a different, I just discovered that different countries have like different diabetes management advices sometimes. So for me, for example, it was mind-blowing going here to the diabetes center, and that an endo will say to me, hey, if you want, you can have a cake for your birthday. It's like, oh wow, really? Can I do that, really? I come more from the very you never have sugar unless you go low. Always, I think there was a transition when I was like 20 something that I jumped into low carb, which I still do because it works very well for me. So I would say that was another jump in terms of diabetes management, discovering a low carb diet. It's not super low, but I mean, definitely it's not for me. Pasta, rice, bread. So,
a typical day, Santiago. What sort of carb content? I mean, obviously you have protein and other stuff, but generally on a day-to-day basis, what sort of carbs do you have to bolus for? Is it maybe in excess of 50, 80 grams or something?
Yeah, well, I would say that maybe more now, but I would say that no, you're about right, like 60, maybe 60 carbohydrates. Something like that. It depends on the day, but
yeah. But that's helped you. I mean, that's quite often the case, pre I mean, when insulin was first created, first found, people they just ate cabbage and stuff, didn't they? They just ate, they didn't really do anything else. They just, and it was like a death sentence, wasn't it? Back then. But now we're able to live a normal, healthy life, with all the knowledge that we've gained over those decades since the creation of insulin. It's just it's just moved on incredibly. With all the new insulins and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, that has changed a lot for sure. So yeah, I mean, to sum up, to me, I would say low carb, the discovery of low carbs, or how that really work in my body, which I was not aware of it. Then I will say freestyle liver sensors. That was a massive change to me, and at the moment I was here, I think I just arrived to the UK at that time. So I remember being like in the waiting list because, as you know, in the UK was, if I'm not wrong, I think was the first place actually where they released the Freestyle Libre in the market.
2017, I think, right about 2017.
So yeah, you're right. And now they have a closed loop. That's I would say that's the. If I had to think, if you ask me, tell me 3 things that change your diabetes management, I think that will be, and of course the education in between. The more I got into it, I mean, it's amazing, but it's really, it is always the case. But education is power, or knowledge is power, or whatever. It just, I mean, I'm surprised till now, as probably you are, all you, when sometimes I meet people with diabetes that. Maybe they're not aware with the concept that we need like different amount of insulins or that our ratio changes during the day, for example. Something that maybe we take for granted for other people, it's not. And those simple things, or injecting your insulin half an hour before you eat, or 20 minutes, or whatever works for you. Or very, very simple tweaks to our lifestyle that they really have an impact. It's unbelievable. Or the order how we eat, we go maybe first for the veggies and then for the carbs. So very simple stuff.
But effective, nevertheless. Effective. If you eat protein, if you're a meat eater, or whatever, or vegetables, if you eat those first, that'll slow the progression of the carbohydrate, absorption down. So that's a good way of education, and that's a good way of helping manage your blood spikes and stuff. Which insulin do you use, Santiago? Are you on one of the?
I'm using a Lantus. Yeah. Oh, sorry. I think I lost you. No.
I don't know if we've lost Rich.
Lantus or Lumos.
Yeah, Lantus. Yeah, correct.
I don't know if we've lost Rich there.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was me.
I think I'm here.
There you are.
Here.
There you
go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, can I hear you, mate?
All right.
Yeah, with using this diabetes technology, it's made a huge impact on your life and made it so much better. What do you think the pros and cons of, and what's the hopes for the future of diabetes technologies for yourself and the community? Back in Uruguay, South America, is this technology relatively easy to source, or do you have to pay for it, or can you go and see a GP and get access to it?
You will be surprised. In Uruguay, I mean, we're a tiny country. Just to give an idea of the scale, it's like 3.5 million people populations. Tiny country. But they do give like freestyle libres to all children diagnosed with diabetes for free. Insulin is free there as well. So I mean, the system there is very good. They do not give hybrid closed loop or insulin pumps to older people, but to the new generations, they are giving. If I'm not wrong, they're giving now insulin pumps as well. Not sure if they're using the loop system yet. But anyways, moving to your question, I mean, I'm a designer. I'm quite keen into technology and interfaces and so on. So even if I'm very happy the technology. And I think something that was mentioned at the beginning before I joined the chat, I think we were talking about co-design, no? So this idea of bringing somebody with lived experience within the teams that they develop all these products to us, for us. I think something that I do find with the technology is that the beeping could be very annoying. I think sometimes I do have, like, I don't know, alarm burnout, or don't know how to call it even. But sometimes it's just too much.
Yes.
And I can see that it's something that maybe it's more like a cognitive or behavioral or whatever, but I can see how after using 2 years this system, just hearing the sound, I feel it in my body, It's not only that the sound is telling you that you're going low or high, or that you're running out of insulin, is that somehow it's almost like an extension of my body. Therefore, it does has effects on top of my my mind, my body. I feel it on the skin, if that makes sense. So clearly, there's not so much literature about that yet, and there's not enough research for sure. I know this is not only related with diabetes tech. We can think about the mobile, in general. But I would say that that's one of the challenges. Then another challenge is that clearly there are systems that are not very accessible. I don't know. I'm thinking there's plenty. I don't know the numbers exactly, but this population of people with diabetes that they are blind, or that they have certain visual impairments, or so there's a lot of these systems that they do not work for all of us, without talking about well, if you're in an open source loop, it's different, but I was surprised how there's no the insulin pumps programs, they don't really consider like the period for women, or so I think that's one of the challenges that we have this technology, that is not really inclusive, and maybe just a reflection of the people that they have developed. And things are changing, I will say, because there's more and more people of us working in the industry and so on, but there's still many of these systems that again will be better if they involve us from the scratch, not at the end. That's very important. They should involve us from the beginning of the process.
I totally agree.
So yeah, I would say that that's the tech, and then more from the technical side is the interoperability of things. I'm afraid, well, there's always like commercial interest in between, and different systems that don't work with each other, and nothing new there, no. But sometimes it's a shame seeing that super nice systems, maybe they're not able of making out because of of commercial interest, or do you know what I mean? I think it's just everything should work with everything.
Now, absolutely.
And sensors is a good example of that, no? So,
I do agree. Actually, I do agree, Santiago, about that. I mean, I'm in a closed loop system, but it's like open source, and I've had to change from Libra 2. I've gone to Dex 1 Plus. It works reasonably well, but I have to use 2 or 3 different apps now to manage it. So if one of the apps goes down, I'll lose my CGM. So that's quite difficult. It's like a chain that could, the less chain elements, the more reliable the system. So if you've just got a sensor talking to an app on your phone and then talking to an insulin pump, that's the best option. Whereas if you've got a sensor talking to glucose data handler, then X drip, and then feeding back to your closed loop system, that's like 3 or 4 links of the chain that could, if one of them goes down, that's problematic, or it can become problematic.
Oh yeah, and I mean, I don't know you personally, but clearly you know how to do it, how to work around it. But we have to think about digital literacy, or all the systems could be quite complex for somebody that is not really into technology, or and that people should be able of using the systems and feel better as well. So yeah, I think there's a lot of work to be done there. But I mean, fantastic we're living, all of us. It's amazing how things have changed in the last 6 years. It's mind blowing. Like some of the things are doing. It's like sci-fi.
Really
incredible. Thank you. Thanks for sharing all that information. It's just amazing to know that you're living your best life, and you know, it's just so nice to hear that within our community that, you know, you're doing all right. Bless you. Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you.
Nice one, Rich. Great section there. Really interesting, especially about the tech. Thank you. So let's move on to our last sort of section tonight. A little bit about diabetes, work advocacy, and then the last two topics. So Santiago, I know last a couple of years ago, 2 years, you came on and you talked a little bit about your diabetes artwork, and we'll signpost that out so people can go watch that and see the presentation and stuff like that. But as a sort of brief, really, is tell us a little bit about the advocacy work you do with your artwork. Like, what inspired you to do it? Like, how did you start it, and a little bit about it, like the sort of things that you have done with it.
Well, to be completely honest with you, I started just by accident.
The best way.
I think, well, yeah, exactly. Was a quite organic start. So I think this was the moment when we moved to London with my wife, and I think I just started doing like some doodles about living with diabetes. On top of a napkin or something like that. And she said to me, "Hey, you should open like an Instagram channel." And I think this was like 2018, 2017. So to be honest, at that time, there was not so many people like now. The community was smaller. And I think that for some reason, it just resonated in a good way. So I think there was an element of that. That doesn't answer why I started. I think the why was more because I think I was a bit, the word is not exactly frustrated, but there was out there all these kind of diabetes memes or graphics trying to represent us, which clearly they hadn't been done by people who didn't have a clue about what was living with diabetes. So I think there was an element of misrepresentation there, and I thought, this is not good for us. This is, I didn't feel represented there neither. No,
definitely.
So there was definitely that aspect, and then I think there was a combination between my background as a designer and that I quite like, I don't know, semiotics and graphics and this type of things, and that just aligned with my lived experience. And immediately after starting, I was contacted by Elizabeth, the founder of T1 International, for the Insulin for All campaign, asking for if I was interested in doing some graphics. And then from there, I think I went to my first ever diabetes. I don't know if it was a conference. This was in the old Royal Naval College in London. It was called T1D Global. This was organized by League of the Athletes. By Gavin. Yeah, exactly. And I remember that, it was like early days, or at least early days for me. And I met there many people that now I can see that they're, working in different places, or people that are working in global health policies, as Apurva. I don't know if you know her. So I think things just connected very, in a natural way.
I love that. You know what I mean? It went from a very organic way, like you just doing some doodles on a napkin. Your wife said, "Hey, maybe set up a Insta account," and it's grown. But I just love, like you say, the representation of it. You're raising awareness. You kind of helping people understand about diabetes, addressing any misconceptions or anything. You know what I mean? And one of the ones I really love is the sock picture, and it looks it looks
well, thank you very much.
And I'm gonna share some of these from your presentation last time that you sent us, and I love how simple it is, and that's not a way of just offending it, but when you guys see this, it's got a pair of socks on like a washing line, 2 identical socks, and they're like, I guess they're talking to each other, and sock 1 says, "Hi, I'm diabetic sock," and then sock 2 says, "You look normal to me," and you know what I mean? That just like, when I saw that for the first time, I was like blown away by it, because in the real world, that happens to people. You know what I mean? People may say I'm diabetic, and then they go, "Oh, you look normal," because diabetes can a lot of the time feel and look like a invisible condition, right? So you know what I mean? Seeing that's how I interpret it. But is there any thoughts from you? But I just think that's great, because from someone looking at it, that's what happens in real life.
But to be honest with you, first of all, thank you very much. I'm so glad that you that it had an impact on you, and that you could relate to it. So that's, for me, that's a very successful let's say piece in a way. But I think that so it was very interesting how the channel evolved, because some of the graphics in a moment, they were actually, people sending me messages and say, "Hey, what about if you do a graphic about this?" Or, when I see this graphic of you, I think about X, or it really, that's one of the reasons why, there's no pictures of myself. I mean, my initial idea, at least, was more like a talking about the diabetes, life, or the diabetes landscape, as I used to say. And I really wanted to, trying to find that sweet spot of talking about something that is very serious, but like in a light-hearted way, and even if possible to be a bit cheeky and a bit, funny about it, because we do know that living with diabetes, it's tough, but
it can be very serious as well. So having it having it in a light-hearted way can be a nice way to represent it, isn't it?
So I think that's what I try to do there. And there, actually, you mentioned something very important. There's part of me that, I don't know if this happens to you, but there's certain, how we define this, it's more like medical aesthetics, something that is informing like all the health products that not necessarily sometimes can apply to diabetes, because diabetes is something that we, it's a chronic condition. It's something that we live every day with. It is not just something that you take insulin one time and you go home and that's it. No, it's not about that. So I think there's part of me that also didn't like, or I still don't like, these medical aesthetics that sometimes they want to impose on ourselves. So that's there's an aspect of that too. So I would say that my advocacy, is related with those elements I mentioned. And I was something I'm very proud of is that I was lucky enough of working in Diabetes UK for a few years in the creative team, and I was part of the team that did all the rebranding of the current, let's say, visual identity of how now it looks like. And that was something
I never knew that. Cool.
So there was many of us, just to clarify, and there was an agency, but that was a very interesting. I mean, for me, it was kind of advocacy as well, because
you're paying it forward, essentially.
Had an impact. So and I still do things with different. I do work for more, let's say, more like the private sector as well, but I also still do things for NGOs, or local groups, or things like that, when I'm ready.
That's brilliant. That's great. So guys, please check out Santiago on social media. Is it the same name on Instagram that people can search? Like, do you have to put anything specific in, or?
No, at all. It's exactly the same as the Diabetic Survivor.
Brilliant. What made you come up with that name? What was what?
I have no idea. To be honest, I don't know. It was just the first name that came
to your mind when you were making an account.
Yes, and yeah, I mean,
it's very true. It's very true.
It's very true. I mean, there's something about now that I see more from the language matters, point of view. But diabetic, well, I mean, it's fine. We can say we ourselves. We can refer to ourselves as a diabetic if we want to. We can do whatever we want. I do have a funny story about the name. It's like, when you are targeted with an ad in social media. Once I was targeted by an insurance company, and as many of you know, when we have insulin pumps or we have diabetes, well, it's quite common to get an insurance. It's not a must, but I think it's the recommended or the best practice, So at that time I was looking for companies to insure my pump, and because I got this kind of targeted ad, and sometimes when we click, show your interest, they automatically take your metadata, so your name of your user, of your handle. So I just click like, I would like to learn more. And I think there was a week after, I get a call from the insurance company, and the guy, say, "Oh, hello, I want to speak with a diabetic survivor about an insurance," and the guy started laughing when he realized what he said. I mean, it was so funny. It looked like
oh man,
like a prank or something.
Yeah. I'm loving tonight's chat. Very, very good fun. All right, what we'll do is to conclude the evening. We'll bring Rich back in, and we'll have a little discussion about living with type 1 diabetes as a dad, a parent. And can I just double check, Santiago, before? So you have type 1 diabetes, and your children don't have type 1 diabetes, is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Super. Correct. Same with you, Rich. You've got 2 beautiful children, and same with me. I've got 2 children, and neither of them have type 1 diabetes, well, to my knowledge. So can I ask, we'll have a little discussion really, is what is it like for you, Santiago, like living with type 1 diabetes, being a parent, and like, does it, and how does it like affect your life maybe as a parent? Is there any situations you have to, you know what I mean, explain to your children? Like how have you found that, trying to explain to your children your condition and what they need to do or what you need to do?
I mean, I will answer the question if then after me you tell yours.
No, you you go first.
I'm pulling your leg. So I mean, my experience is quite a fairly new one, because my son is just only 1 year old now. I will say, when you invite me to be part of to be here tonight, I say, hey, what can I say about fatherhood and diabetes? And actually, I took like a little notebook that I have, and I wrote a few lines, and I was, during those days, I was trying to pay attention more about on the practicalities, rather than the things that, well, one could think the obvious stuff. And I think, in my case, well, again, my child is very young, so I cannot explain what is to have diabetes to him. But for example, now he knows that he cannot touch my tubing. And he really gets close, and he doesn't play with it anymore, which is quite impressive. So, but to me, personally, what has been more challenging and still is more like, I would say that it's kind of embracing this sense of forgiveness. I mean, in terms of knowing that sometimes I should be with him, but I cannot. So I'm going to bring an example to illustrate. I don't know. 2 days ago, we were the 3 of us and say, hey, today will be great to have a bath, And so I prepared all the bath. We were doing the dinner. As you know, with a child, everything takes time. When finally I get the bath ready to do it, I just go low, So I look to my wife and say, hey, just enjoy the bath with Tiago, which is my son. And I just went to the kitchen, I had like my glucose tabs. I waited 15 minutes, and it's just being with that feeling there is quite tough. And the same happens when sometimes I'm in the park trying to make him asleep, and I'm walking, and and I go low, and he starts crying, or those moments are very difficult. Or for example, giving the insulin, bolusing in time, and then forgetting about it because, well, as we know with children, sometimes you jump from one thing to another one and then realizing you're going low
100%.
because you never finish your breakfast. No?
Yeah.
I mean, and the day goes by and these things happen 1, 2, 3 times, and so I don't know. I was trying to pin down the feeling, but I don't know if it's embracing to forgive ourselves and say, hey, that's fine, and I mean, we have a very open relationship with my wife in terms of speaking about everything, and she knows that first is me, because if I'm not working okay, I cannot support neither of them, and but that's something that we have to be very clear, and it's not being selfish. It's just the way it is, and
absolutely.
Yeah.
I applaud you. That's amazing, and thank you so much for sharing that. And it brings back so many memories, because my son's 5 now, and like you say, your son is 1, and I remember in the early years of Harry, in the first year or 2, we were just trying to normalize everything as possible. And you know what I mean, I can't obviously have a conversation directly with him, you know what I mean, indirectly you can do certain things, but like check my levels around him, or I was injecting around, you know what I mean. Obviously as they get older and they start running around and stuff, you might do it in a safer place so they don't run into you or something, but doing it, trying to normalize it, because this is my life, this is a big part of my life, it has been for many years, like you and Rich and many other people, and it will be a big part of our life for many years to come unless something happens. And you know what I mean, it's educating, it's normalizing things, and for now, like, you know what I mean, I haven't had many serious conversations with Harry, who's 5. Ella's 18 months, so very similar to your son, really, but I haven't had serious conversations, but he knows that I have things on me that he calls robots, and he calls Daddy a robot. He knows my pump, and he knows what it looks like, so he's familiar. He knows what if I'm on it and he sees it, he's, oh, there's your insulin, Daddy. So he knows that, and he knows how to give the insulin. I've showed him how to do that, actually, but that's a good thing or bad thing. So he knows how to do that, and I think that's what it's about. I think, you know what I mean, it's normalizing things, and in ways you can at them ages, and for me, which I think you're the same, is, you know, not hiding away from it, and you're teaching your child without obviously them having that full-on conversation. But look, it is hard, like you said, them examples. I find it guilty if, like, you want to do something, or my son or daughter want to do something, and I can't do something because I'm dealing with something. Or for me, I'm quite a chilled person, I'd say, but if I'm low or high, my attitude can maybe change. I might get a bit more snappy or a bit moody, or you know what I mean, and that's not nice for my son to see me kind of go through, and why is Daddy in a mood now, you know what I mean? But that might be because I've just had gone through a rubbish hypo or something, or a prolonged high, and it's giving me headaches and stuff, you know what I mean? So it's, I think it's all about putting safety measures in place, having comfortable conversations. And as he gets older, I'm sure, like with your son, you'll then educate further, and you'll maybe explain things further. So that, I just wanted to add that, really. Rich, anything from you wanted to share from your point, which would be nice to Santiago, and then we'll come back to Santiago.
Yeah, really interesting, Tom, Santiago. I think when you look at the big picture, like this screening program that's been talked about, you know, in terms of when I want I've got a 9-year-old daughter, soon be 10. I've got a son that's 34-year-old son, and 2 grandchildren. Screening would be, I mean, obviously having type 1 can lead into, I don't know the sort of, the how often it'll turn into type 1 if you have 1 or 2 children or whatever. I can't remember that. I can't remember what the term is now. But when you get to school and all that, it's a long time ago since I went to school. But I think that's really good how you can have screening to identify it, whether they're going to become potentially diabetic or not. How do you feel about that, Santiago? That's quite an interesting topic, isn't it? With
yeah.
I mean, at the moment, I've got a few notes in front of me. There's actually 8.75 million people in the world that's got type 1 diabetes, and that's going to rise. That's possibly going to rise between 27 and 40% over the next 20 years. Now, that to me is quite a worrying stat. You know what I mean?
Yeah, big numbers, and I mean it's really like a global situation. Yeah. So sorry. So you were talking about the ELSA study here in the UK when you were referring to the type 1.
Yeah, that was. Yeah. The ELSA study. That's where they screen children for potential diabetes.
Yeah, so when I met in person Tom in Lisbon last year, actually one of the first things I said to him was like, hey, amazing meeting you in person. We need to speak about the type 1 screening and how you feel as a father, because I mean, of course, I do think that it's a very good thing to have. I do think that having the choice is something amazing. So I'm really pro type 1 screening. At the same time, I do think that it's a personal choice, and also it's like a decision that should be taken in the, how you will say, like the household. No, it's not only about me; it's also about
for sure
my wife, because you getting that information could cause a lot of anxiety, or I think one can see from both sides. It's all this idea of the soft landing, therefore you have more time to prepare, you have time to educate and so on. And in my case it's still early days, because the window to test, if I'm not wrong, I think the protocol was 3 years old. So that's too early for us. But what I'm very conscious is that it's a fantastic tool, especially thinking about people that they do have diabetes, in their genes, or might be triggered in the near future, and they don't have any person with diabetes in their family. Which is apparently way more than I thought. This is like a new research that came out. Why I'm saying this, because of course the soft landing, something that we'll do as well, will be avoiding all these comas and DKAs, which are terrible. I mean, I never experienced one, but I know that is a very could have also consequences. But in my case, I do think that I'm so close to my child that I will see the signs. So this is partially my answer, because then it's more like, well, but if and immunotherapies are out there, still not here in the UK, you can do something about it. So for example, we have TL. Oh, sorry, you go.
I think you're so right, Santiago. Like, I think first and foremost, like you say, you've been living with type 1 27 years. I'm 18 and Rich 40 years. So screening programs weren't around or like out there like when we were obviously diagnosed. They've kind of come in the last sort of 5 years, and that's a couple of places. Is it UK? Is it Switzerland, and quite a few other places? But it's not worldwide, is it? For one. But I totally agree. I think I like the idea of it. I think the prevention, fantastic. I need to learn more about it. Me and my wife were talking about it a couple of weeks ago, actually. Like you, I think I would hopefully spot the symptoms in my son or daughter. I'd like to hope. I like the idea of it. I think it's good. I just need to go away, think about it more. And it's individual. At the end of the day, it's individual for that household, like you said.
I agree.
Can I ask a question? Let's flip it, because I was before we finished tonight, I was 17 when I was diagnosed. You both were 14. I know this is hypothetically, but like, if this was available and you were 13, and your parents said, "Hey, like, would you like to do this?" Or did it, like, we think you like, how do you think you would feel like at that time? Be interested. Like, it's probably a hard question to answer, but
that's a very good question, by the way, Tom.
I didn't plan that one. That's just cool.
That's a very good twist.
I think, Tom, looking at it, I would have known. I mean, I was poorly for about 2 months, but my consultant then in 1984 said I had mumps. I had mumps when I was 8 years old, and that was a virus, a bit like COVID, and that damaged my beta cells. Now, when I was doing my mock exams at school, that's when it came to the fore, and my beta cells started to be depleted. They were depleted by that point. So, if I'd have got screened 2, maybe 3 years prior to that, it might not have, there was a viral infection. The mumps that I had obviously affected me, but it was like going through the change, like puberty, that caused it. That's what my diagnosis was all about. My beta cells declined over about maybe 3 to 4 months. So if I got screened, I think you can delay the onset by taking. I think they can delay the onset of diabetes, can't they? Can they delay that?
I mean,
but you only have like a 5-year window or something, don't you?
3 years.
Where they can delay the
3 to 5. I mean, of course, it's not 100%, but that's the idea. And also, so we have on one side the screening, which is very important, and then there's a lot of let's say hope in the new therapies that are being developed as well, because it's not now we have, I think the United States is only one out there. So I mean, on this note, I would like to say that I'm involved in like in a steering group that is like a think ahead is called, and it's like a think tank, and part of it is like thinking about there's a certain sense of misinformation about screening, or to me it's even quite confusing, and then also what we do with that, the different stages where we can do something about it or not. So there's many institutions that they're trying to also to bring some clarification as well. There's one that is called Identify in Belgium that is more on the protocol and clinical side of things. We have impact within Inodia, using clinical trials, and so there's a lot of things going on about that. And I do think, because it was not my case, but avoiding a DKA, that's something amazing, no?
100%.
That's really that's just only because of that. But again, when it comes to my personal case, I don't know if I will do it, to be honest with you at this point. No, let's speak in 2 years. But it's definitely the way to go. I would say for the rest of the population.
I think, like you say, it's options. There's, if it's available and people want to do it, then yes, there's options. That's good. We had, before we finished tonight, we had about a year ago, I think, Harry was unwell and drinking a little bit, quite more than he would normally, and it just didn't seem right. And we just give him a lot more like care, in the sense of monitoring him, and we were doing finger prick tests for a few days, and then everything was okay, and everything, you know what I mean, it didn't go too high or too low, really. So I like to think that I would be spot things, but it doesn't necessarily mean I will. I might not. You just don't know, do you? But I think it's something very important, and maybe later in the year we can come back and we can have a panel chat, Santiago, with other people in the community.
That would be very interesting
to do this.
Sorry to interrupt you, but did you screen yourself when we were in this one?
I didn't. No, I didn't. And I wanted to, and then when you were just like so busy and stuff, and then I should have, like, because I would have been interested to see it. Did you?
Yeah. Yes, I did. I have the 4 auto antibodies present. Yeah. So.
And what you have a finger prick test, and then they.
Yes. There was just they just take it away, and then they send you the
email,
the results. Yeah.
Wow.
I really wanted to see the experience as well. How it feels to. And,
yeah, definitely. So, I think in this day and age, I like to think this. Like, I know more the UK. I don't know about around the world, but I'd like to think in this day and age that it's 103 years, is it, since the discovery of anything, and I'd like to think that if someone went to a GP and they said, I don't feel well, and they explained the symptoms of diabetes, and obviously there's the 4 common ones among other ones, I would like to think they would be, rather than going through a screening process, that you basically get your finger prick check, you go get a blood test, you go straight to it, So I know people get misdiagnosed. I know we've heard stories of people say, oh, I think it's this, just take this antibiotics, or do this, do that, and then they get really ill and DK, etc. But I would like to think in the UK, I don't know about the world, but in this day and age, I'd like to think you go to GP, you explain, and they would check them. But it doesn't mean that I'm against earlier prevention if you checked. I think if I had no diabetes background, if my family didn't have a history of diabetes, I probably wouldn't be exploring it, because I wouldn't know about it. I wouldn't really be seeing it. Do you know what I mean? But for me, my granddad had diabetes and died the year I was born. So, you know what I mean? If I was now 17 or something, and I knew that was in my family history, I might be more inclined to go, you know what, I'll do the screening.
Yeah. That's a very, that's a very interesting aspect you bring into, because, for example, Italy now, they do the screening to the entire populations, no? So I don't know exactly how it's working in the clinics, but
wow.
So they have, so how that's interesting, an interesting point, and I will not expand on this because it will take so long. But anyway, so this comes to each person to decide, or is something that you can choose when your children is born and you're in the hospital, and you can see if it is celiac, and also if it has the antibodies of diabetes. So where in the system do we put this, and also if we get a positive result, what we do with that? No?
I know.
What will be the treatment? No, I do agree that the better treatment is prevention. No, so that's definitely the way to go.
I think.
I mean, there's so many questions to be answered.
There's so many, and I think I've got a decent understanding of it. I think if I feel ready to look into more of it, that'll be my next avenue where I read it properly and speak to whoever. But I think it's good. It's something that wasn't there before, and if we can prevent diabetes, and I think, like you said, touched upon tonight, guys, is if it's currently 3 to 5 years, you know what I mean, they'll be looking at ways to extend it 3 to 5 to 5 to 10 to you know what I mean. So fingers crossed. Let's see what the future holds. Thank you so much, Santiago and Rich. What a fabulous night.
Thank you.
That's been cracking. Thank you very much. It's been very, very educational, and it's so nice to hear from you. Thanks for coming on. It's been a wonderful evening.
Thank you very much, guys, for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. And remember, guys, you can listen back if you're on the podcast. Go check out Santiago on his social medias. Head to his store and follow all his amazing advocacy work. And maybe you'll bump into him at an event. And have a great chat.
That'd be cool. That'd be cool. That one, that'd be
Looking
awesome.
forward to. All right. Have a good night.
Cheers, buddy. Take care.
Cheers.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you. Thanks, my friend. Take care. Bye now.